Hello, hello, hello,
Hello.
everyone. Yes. So yeah, guys, welcome to our webinar. My name is Igor. I'm founder of Web2Wave. We do web top funnels for mobile applications and other subscription businesses. We have here Nathan from Perceptycs, really cool agency who prepare creatives for a lot of companies, including our clients. And today we wanted to talk about creatives. Why this topic in general? Uh, like for the context, when you do web to app funnels, we will not explain what are web to app funnels in this webinar. It's completely different topic. But like when you do marketing for web to app funnels, you mostly do it on Meta, on Facebook, on Instagram. And while we personally think that like at least we know how to do web funnels, like from technological perspective, from content side, so we know how to do them. We know how to scale them. We know how to create like multiple funnels for different audiences. But then next problem that our clients and in general all the apps on the market face is how you scale meta ads or TikTok ads, whatever. But Meta, again, is the main traffic source. And when you do Meta ads, like previously, like years ago, you had to select like interests of the user, and Meta algorithm knew interest of these users, so they will show the ads only to relevant people. Now the algorithm behaves differently. In most cases, you just set up like a wide campaign, worldwide campaign, or like United States, or you just select the country. You don't put any filters, at least not much filters, and you add creatives. With the newest algorithm of Meta, Andromeda, this became way more important. We had multiple talks and we did events with Meta where they explained it. Like now you have to do a lot of different creatives. So like the creative is targeting. So this is how you like acquire users. Algorithm knows which creatives will perform for every audience, and it will show these creatives to required audience. And because of that, creatives are very, very important. And they affect not only the CTR of the creative, but in most cases, it affects like the performance of the funnel itself. It affects everything that happens after the click. So that's why we decided to talk about this. So like when you have the funnel, when you launch ads, you may see results, and sometimes these results are not what you expect, and then you have to dig into the analytics that you have, and you dig not only to the funnel itself, but you have to dig into the creatives, the meta. What audience do these creatives bring? How these creatives are performing? What about CTRs? What about CPAs, CPMs? A lot of metrics that you have to consider, and that's why we brought Nathan. Nathan knows everything about setting up meta campaigns and doing creatives for businesses like mobile applications mostly and other subscription businesses. So yeah, this is like a small intro from my side. Nathan, thank you for joining us today, and
No, thank
yeah,
you, Igor.
you're on stage.
Thank you. Thank you. Hey, everyone. Great to be here. Very excited to jump in. Igor essentially explained what it is that we're going to be talking about. The kind of topic that we pushed out for the webinar is it a funnel problem or a creative problem? And the reason we kind of went with this title is because I get a lot of questions from, mobile app teams running UA and optimizing web funnels where they kind of reach a point where they're not sure whether or not it's a funnel problem or a creative problem. right? And we'll cover some metrics and dive into this. On one hand, there's an easy answer that you can give. On the other hand, there are edge cases and quite often times where it's not that simple. But this is kind of the initial premise. But what I really want to do is kind of dive into what makes a good creative and how kind of I think about creatives and we think about creatives at Perceptycs. So a bit about me. I'm Nathan. That's my name. So I run Perceptycs, and we're a growth agency for mobile apps, and we do a whole load of things. Mainly these days, we do a lot of UA and creative production on Meta, TikTok, Google, Apple search ads, but the primary channel being Meta. So we're producing a lot of creatives. We have clients that we're making hundreds of creatives for a week. So like, yeah, 500 plus a month in some cases. And we have clients where we're creating, 20 creatives a week for. So it really varies. And we know quite a bit about creative that I want to share with you. So that's a little bit about me. Before we dive into the creative side of things, I wanted to share this nice slide that Igor has allowed me to share, which is some performance benchmarks that Web2Wave have on funnel conversions. There's a lot more granular funnel metrics and benchmarks in the product, but these I just wanted to share to kind of get everyone acclimatized to what it is we're talking about. I think it's really helpful to be aware of funnel benchmarks, right? Because if you understand what benchmarks are, you can at least have some inclination of where you should be focusing or where you shouldn't be. For example, if you have a 10% first screen conversion rate, chances are you've got a first screen issue, right? And this is not genius stuff. It doesn't take anyone smart to figure this out. If you're way off the benchmark, chances are there's something you should be looking at there, right? So if you aren't familiar with these metrics and you're trying to understand whether or not it's a funnel problem or a creative problem, definitely recommend that you essentially take this, maybe screenshot and start with this. But I actually want to now challenge these benchmarks a little bit. And I want to challenge the assumption that even I made, which is that if my funnel metrics are not on par with the benchmarks, it's a funnel problem, right? The reason I say this is because the obvious logic is if my first screen conversion isn't 40 to 60%, there's a problem here, right? If my paywall conversion is only 5%, there's a problem here. And oftentimes this can be the case, but very often what we see across the funnels that we're working with, and this is both for web to app and in-app, is that even if the funnel metrics are lacking, it could potentially be a creative problem, right? And this is really important to touch on. It's not every time that your first screen conversion is low that it is necessarily a funnel problem. Sometimes, as Eagle kind of touched at the beginning, you're pushing the wrong traffic to the funnel because the creative's putting the wrong audience in. And this is the big issue to kind of deal with. And this is something I want to kind of dive into and explore a little bit more as we go through each of those metrics. But the one thing to think about here, which is quite important, is if you're optimizing your meta campaigns, right? My assumption is that you're optimizing for like the purchase event or the trial start event, right? This kind of checkout event is what you should be optimizing for, which means that Meta is going to, by definition, try to get people who reach this event. So by definition, Meta is trying to get users that do go through your funnel, right? But if you're pushing creatives that are too weak and creatives that don't bring in the right audience, we're never going to get there in the first place. So just assumption one is that you're optimizing for this right event. But if you're not, then this is a problem. And also, if I quickly go back, to this performance benchmark screen, there's one thing to keep in mind, which is that all of these performance benchmarks are based on strong top of funnel activity, right? So this is performance benchmarks when you have good creative, right? Performance benchmark when UA is working. This is not performance benchmarks if you don't have any winning creatives, right? So again, separating out the creative and the funnel becomes pretty tricky stuff. So the funnel metrics might be bad because the creative is pulling in the wrong audience. Let's kind of take this sentence and explore the various benchmarks that Web2Wave have. And I want to give you two examples. One example of how it might be a creative problem and one example of how it might not be a creative problem, right? So if we're looking at our first screen conversion, let's say I'm seeing something like 25%. I said earlier, it's obvious to think, okay, users are coming to this funnel. They're not converting on the first screen. Therefore, I need to tweak the first screen. This is not necessarily true. The first screen might be entirely fine, right? It might be that the creative that you're pushing is just completely unaligned with what this first screen is. Let's say you're pushing a simple lose weight message, but your creatives are pushing get stronger, right? This is not good synergy or any coherence here. This is an issue. It's not necessarily the first screen issue. It could in fact be that the creative is wrong. The rule of thumb that I like to have is that whenever we're talking about creative and first screen of the funnel, is that the headline or the hook or the core message should be the same across both of these, right? In some cases, I've even seen with static creatives, and this is crazy. I don't know, Igor, maybe you've seen this, but I've seen people taking the creative that they're pushing as a static and using this as the actual first screen, right? So kind of like having an ad, like you click from the ad and then you land also on the ad. I've seen this maybe once or twice. The challenge with this is that at scale, when you're testing so many creatives, it becomes messy. But the logic is simple. We want to have as much coherence between meta and our funnel as possible, so the user knows they've landed in the right place.
Okay, yeah, interesting. Sorry, Nathan. Here, yeah, like interesting example where you take the creative and you put it on the first screen. I never saw it personally, but I do see sense in it. And like I would second like your take about that you have to have the same message in the creative and in on the first screen. In some cases, like our clients, even they do not create multiple first screens. They just pass the title, text title from Meta. So you can generate like hundreds of different creatives with different offers, and you just pass it by the link to the first screen. And the first screen will be showing the offer that you had in Meta. In this case, you don't even need to create multiple first screens or multiple funnels, and it does work, especially on scale.
It's a really interesting one. Yeah, that's cool. Another thing there then is, and I get this question a lot, sometimes creatives are selling the product, right? And then they land on the quiz that says, take our quiz now, for example, and people are like, I didn't come here for a quiz, right? One experiment that I suggest people run is experimenting with the CTA and their creatives. Sometimes CTAs where you're saying, take this quiz now, work really well. Other times they don't, right? It very much depends on whether or not the onboarding funnel that you're running is revealing something to the user. Great example is personality test apps, right? Apps that kind of track your personality and different quirks like this. Having a straight personality test as the quiz on the product, on the funnel, makes total sense because this is what you're kind of selling, right? And then in the paywall, behind the paywall, you kind of get the results and stuff like this. This is fine. But for many health and fitness apps, like users are fed up of saying like how many pounds they want to lose, all of this stuff. They do this all the time. So if you're kind of pushing in your creative, like a funny POV or meme style creative, and maybe we'll see some shortly, it may be the case that you have some issues here if you push the kind of quiz CTA. So now if we talk about quiz completion again, this, and we get to the next slide. Quiz completion can be very much related to the creative if your funnel doesn't really explore the kind of core message your creative is pushing. So if you have very, competitor clone funnel and you'll kind of have your parallelization across the different branches, you should be fine, right? But the question is, the user who's clicking on a specific creative, if you were to imagine being them and kind of go through the journey with their answer, what they may give, is the funnel optimized for them? This happens a lot when companies scale out. Maybe they have one core job to be done or one core persona that they're targeting, and the creatives are working, the funnel's working. They now want to test a variety of different personas, and they either don't have the funnel to match with this, or they have some creatives that are still a little bit weak. This can be a creative problem. Most of the time, quiz completion is more likely that you're losing them for some reason in the funnel, but I have seen it be a creative issue at times. Paywall conversion, this is where things start to change, right? And what I want to kind of point through is this. The further away from the creative that you get, the less likely it's a creative problem. Very, very rarely have I seen paywall conversion be an issue just because the creative was poor, right? Especially if you're kind of looking at or I say paywall conversion, but checkout page conversion, right? Especially if you're kind of taking your aggregated metrics from all of your channels that you're pushing, chances are, if the paywall isn't converting, there's something wrong with this paywall or this checkout screen or the pages around this. However, in many times, and you will see this, if you have, say, 5 creatives and you track every single funnel metric, paywall conversion on creative 1 may be significantly higher than creative 2, right? So in this case, you're like, is it a funnel problem or is it a creative problem? And this is why I like to say to people that creative tests are never done in isolation, right? If you're looking at one creative and you're tracking these funnel metrics, you're going to really struggle to understand because I have nothing to compare it to. I've got no baseline. If we've got 5 creatives, 20 creatives, 50 creatives, 100 creatives, all of a sudden I can start to see, oh, this specific creative is performing okay on platform, but for some reason there is a dramatically lower paywall conversion rate. In this case, it's a creative problem. So for everyone who's kind of out here starting, if you're new to this, my suggestion would be to make sure that you're testing enough creative to see these sorts of trends. And for the larger apps that are really scaling beyond the current point that they're at, it becomes a little bit more different. Like you already have enough creatives, look at the average across these and really compare as many funnel metrics as you can for these creatives. This is a great reason why web to app and web funnels make sense, because you can track this kind of data with the UTM parameters, right? Like it's very hard to do in-app, but we can do this. Now, I caveat this with one point. This whole idea of the further we get from the creative, the least likely it is to be a creative issue only works when you're looking at the metrics in isolation. And by that, I mean, it's very rarely that one metric stands out like a sore thumb. Of course, if you've got a 2% paywall conversion rate, it's obvious that your paywall is weak. But if you have a really strong hook rate and a really strong hold rate, and then not so good click to funnel or click to landing page, and then your first screen conversion's a little bit low, but then your quiz completion's relatively high compared to other things, the metrics overall become really complicated, right? And it becomes a case of what is actually doing here? Where is the issue? And I say it's easy to isolate a single week funnel metric, right? We don't need to have a webinar on isolating the funnel metric because everyone here understands how numbers work, right? But when there's no obvious lagging metric, the question is, what's the issue? How do we get to the bottom of this? And this is what I want to dive into. Honestly, I have no clue, right? Thank you for coming. No, I'm joking. I say this, I am joking, but it becomes very, very tricky to answer this question without actually looking at every individual circumstance and context, looking at the data, looking at the creatives, looking at each and every funnel metric, generating a whole lot of hypotheses. So to kind of give you a one-size-fits-all answer, kind of impossible. So if you were looking for a quick win, I'm sorry, I don't have one. But what I do have are 2 questions that you can ask and 2 questions that you should really consider to help you actually get to the bottom of this. The first question is, how does your funnel compare to your competitors or best-in-class funnels, right? This is maybe an obvious question, but chances are if you are a screen time app, right, and you're kind of helping people detox and you're trying to copy Opal, or you're a running app and you're copying Runner, right? Chances are, well, especially with Runner as an example, but many of these apps have done a lot of testing on the web funnels, right? They've done a lot of the hard work for you. They figured out kind of what works and what converts, and you can copy them, right? Best in class funnels, you can copy them, right? You can kind of look at, oh, look, here they have this countdown thing, and here they have this interstitial, and here there's some social proof, right? Like Igor can give you hundreds and hundreds of funnel breakdowns and teardowns, and many of them are the same. In fact, my question, Igor, for you is like, do you find that oftentimes like the funnels in, say, health and fitness, when compared to competitors, are like very much the same? And how often do you find like a very novel, innovative funnel?
The reality is they're pretty the same. Like if we have any kind of novelty or like new stuff, it's usually related to the wordings, the offers that they put into the funnel. The structure is the same, and they will also like say that when you try to invent something new, the chances that you will be successful are pretty low. Like every time I see when the clients they go to these funnels, they research them, and they say, okay, like we got the idea, and they recreate it, and they skip, like few screens. Like let's skip the screen with like we have millions of users. Let's skip the screen that we have experts building this product. Let's remove, I don't know, like timer in the funnel, or something, like some feature that looks like not that important, or like we need to create a registration in this funnel for some reason. Every time everything breaks. So I would say, like, do not try to invent. Keep the same structure, change the offers, and I would say even the funnels for different niches could have the same structure. But like what works for the conversion are the offers, the panes that we present in the funnel, like on the first screen, on the last screen, on the paywall. But yeah, structure is the same, I would say.
Yeah. Interesting. This is what I've seen too, right? And the reason I say this is because it's kind of a trick question. The question really is, if your funnel compares to competitors' funnels and best-in-class funnels, it's probably not a funnel problem, right? And if it is a funnel problem, hopefully it's one that's somewhat obvious, where we spoke about earlier with the kind of lagging metric that's really clear. If it's not that, could it be a funnel problem? Yes, but the chances are the amount of experiments and spend that you're going to need to actually get a statistical significant result on improving this is very tricky, right? And I would suggest that you first ask yourself the second question, which is how many creatives have you tested, right? Funnels are a lot more forgiving when it comes to copying the competition, and they fatigue at a much lower rate, right? Once you have your structure of your funnel and you have your core messaging, chances are you can push, millions of spend, millions of dollars, millions of euros of spend into this funnel for a specific audience, and it will convert just fine. Sure, you may need to do some optimizations, you may find some wins, but it's probably going to be small. They fatigue at a lower rate. Creative, on the other side, is very, very different, right? I call it like the wild, wild west. Chances are, it's the wild west, and we're going to get into this actually in a second on the creative side. But point I'm making is, if you've modeled a competitor funnel and you haven't tested at least 100 creatives, don't even start to think about, is it a funnel problem, right? My suggestion would be that you focus on testing 100 creatives, 100 like good different creatives with hypotheses, right? Not just like random stuff that you've come up with. But this is what I would suggest. And for some of you, you may be thinking, oh, this is a really big number. For others of you, you might be thinking, we test 100 creators every week. This is nothing. In which case, great. If you're the former and you thinking 100 is a big number, it is a pretty big number and you're starting out. But beyond this or before this, I wouldn't call it a funnel problem unless we have the obvious metric, right? But we're dealing with people who are unsure where we should be focusing. If you're larger and you've been testing 100 creatives a week, this is probably not a specific issue that you have right now, and you're probably more interested in some of the other points we're going to get to. So I'm going to jump to this now. What makes...
sorry, can I jump in here? In the presentation, will you explain how these 100 should be structured?
Yes.
Because like, okay, good. Okay, well, at least I will explain. Like, usually when we recommend our clients that are starting ads, we say that you have to start with like 30, 40 creatives, but we explain it like, find your target audience, find different pain points of your target audience, find 3 ways how to how to catch, how to explain the solution for this pain. Then for every 3 angles, I would say, find like 2-3 video formats, 2-3 static formats, and in this case, you will have like okay, 5 audiences, 3 angles, 15, and every 15 in 6, okay, like 60. So this is how we usually recommend it to do. And you will explain how this 100 should be structured too, right?
Yes. Yeah, I'll talk
Okay,
on that in a second. Yeah,
yes.
It's an interesting approach that I think it makes sense, but we'll come to this. So what makes a good creative, right? This is the question. Funny GIF to keep it fun, right? Let's take a look at some creatives quickly, right? So these are some creatives. Some of these are ones that the team has made, and I want to kind of show these as examples. They're all very different creatives from one another, which is why. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'll show you the 3 creatives, and then we'll talk about them. Okay, now I'm going to pause actually before we go to the third one. First thing I want to say is, and I say this all the time, nobody knows what makes a winning creative, right? And by that, nobody knows what will be a winning creative. Because if people knew what would be a winning creative and we could predict creative winners, we'd be billionaires, right? I'm talking 5 yachts, right? No working, because we can just predict winners and we don't have to pay Mark Zuckerberg any more money. We can just pick the 2 ads we think are winners and then we go. We don't know. But what we do know, or what we think we know, are the elements that we can construct together to make what I like to call a potentially good creative, right? A creative where if you put it in front of a marketer, they look at it and think, hey, that's good. Like I would test this, right? I would test this. This looks good. If you put it in front of 10 marketers, you'll probably get 10 different opinions of, oh, I would tweak this. I like that. I would tweak this, etc., etc. Fine. But the general consensus should be, yeah, like we can run this. It might perform. Now, the 2 creatives that I showed are quite different. They're similar in that they have this cinematic feel to them, right? And the reason that we've gone with the cinematic feel for these creatives is to really emphasize the hook, right? To hook people in the initial and kind of get them thinking. This creative we've just seen with the kind of flashing overthinking. This is to call out people who struggle with overthinking, right? Like you're scrolling, overthinking. Okay, now you've got my attention. It's potentially an interesting one. The previous creative, I don't know if you saw the POV. How do I pause this? I'm trying to pause the creative. Maybe it won't. It doesn't pause. But point is, maybe I can pull it up on my screen here, different screen, and read you guys the text. But the point is, this specific creative has very technical language around like golf, right? It's a golfing creative. It says, POV, you grabbed your 8-iron, hole 19 told you it's a 6. You stuck it 5 feet from the pin, hole 19 wins again. Now, if you don't know anything about golf, this is gibberish to you, right? Like it's like, it means nothing. But this creative is literally just this text POV with some mashup of people hitting some shots, right? That's essentially the creative. And we've given it a sort of cinematic feel. But the core driver of this specific creative is, again, that hook, where we're going after a very specific subset of the market. We're looking for, golfers who have a specific problem where they aren't unsure which club to use. They're looking to lower their score, right? And therefore they're like, hey, this is going to stand out to them. They're like, what do you mean hole 19 wins again? Right. So these are creatives that have some kind of thinking and some thought process behind them, but they're very different. there are general things which you can say, oh, you should do this. Like both of these creatives at the end promote the app, right? We have like an end screen. Not every creative needs an end screen like this, to be fair, but from what we've tested, very rarely does it ever negatively impact you to have an end screen, because people who get that far are watching and are more interested and qualified. So it can help with conversion. But this next creative I want to show you is actually 100% AI. Okay, so this is why I want to show you this one, because it's a complete AI creative. Okay, I don't know if anyone could hear the audio, to be fair.
Yeah, we heard the audio.
Okay, cool. So this creative, completely AI, right? And if we look at the intro or the hook, you can kind of tell it's AI, because if I zoom here, you see how this text is like, what is that? Roy Hitty every. I don't think that's a thing, right? So I think it was meant to say reply to someone's comment, but the model got it a bit messed up. But no one can tell this when you're scrolling on a phone. Apart from that, the creative is pretty strong. And this would be easy to replace, just overlay the text on. I just can't be bothered. But 5 inches down in my waist, 25 pounds. Sorry, 5 inches down in my waist and 25 pounds down on week 10 of Coach Meyer. So this is kind of like a comment that someone's left, and we've taken this and added a mashup to it. What I want to talk about with this creative specifically versus the others is how it feels a lot more native, right? Like the others are they're great creative for their specific niche, especially the overthinking one. This can work well for that kind of, app. But for an app like a health and fitness product or something else, the goal is to always have a creative that doesn't look like an ad, right? That looks like something that's completely just social, native, random. So here the concept was, why don't we take something like trying on clothes, right? They call it like a try on haul, and combine this with doing Zumba. So like I'm trying on clothes to see what clothes I can wear when doing Zumba. And this will be the kind of creative concept, right? And the reason I wanted to touch on this is because what makes a good creative, in my opinion, is, let's say, 3 to 5 things. One, a concept that's like either really trendy right now or just innovative, right? So like these kind of talking head UGC testimonials that you see over and over again, they can perform for specific audiences, but don't start with these. Please don't start with the talking head UGCs. Like it's very it's time consuming to create them, right? You have to get the creator to do all of the talking, you have to produce the script, etc. And like everybody knows it's an ad now, right? Like especially if it's testimonial driven, you can kind of get away with it. They call them like the yapper ads. If someone is just kind of like blurting and talking to camera in like a completely random way. I don't actually have an example with me here, but what I'm talking about is the typical UGC ads that you always see, people always sharing. My suggestion is actually don't start with these. Start with a more simple trend or more simple concept and kind of pick up with this. Igor, you looked interested when I said that.
Yes. Interesting that you say that don't start with UGC talking heads. And I realized that like it was huge like a year ago, maybe like 2 years ago. Everyone was talking about like UGC ads, talking heads. There was like a widely used term for that. And now I realize that not all of the ads like this. Like we see way more less UGC heads creatives, and like it is supporting like what you say. This is like one interesting thing. The other one is that you say that like it's hard to do. I understand, like if you do hire real humans to do that, it's expensive and you have to manage it, and it will be really hard. But with AI, I think it's easier. But okay, well, with AI, everything is easier, but it may be not a really good quality. But I have question here, like if you say that, for instance, for this video, you mentioned that let's do these try-ons with your clothes. How the process? What process do you have for these creative ideas? How it is organized? And you mentioned trends. How we can see these trends? Because, like, for me, I'm not into this niche, so for me, I can say that it's a trend. Probably it is a trend. So how to make the process to generate these ideas, and how embed like trend watching into this process?
Yeah, good
Maybe
question.
complex question, but yeah.
Yeah, a few parts I'll touch on. One, to clarify, I'm not saying don't use UGC at all. Like the golfing creative that I showed, this is UGC, right? What I'm saying is that is a UGC POV concept, right? So like it's not the golf talking to camera. If the golfer was talking to camera, you're like, why is the golfer talking to camera? Like, why he's selling me something, unless he's here to teach you or help give you some tips. So specifically these testimonial product testimonial UGC talking heads, these are the ones that I have issue with. They work, by the way, like many of our winners for many clients are these, but if you're starting with your initial tests, you can get a lot more hypotheses tested and a lot more understanding of like what that core message should be, and that core like two-liner, the core value proposition that you're pushing, just by other types of formats. So I wanted to clarify that. And then when it comes to actually identifying trends and the process for this specific creative, this is what I want to talk about literally now, which is to kind of talk through creative strategy in 2026. And we'll use that last creative as an example. So the process for that creative was, so I made that one, right, myself. I don't make so many creatives, but this one I made because I was experimenting with it was our internal like video generation tool that we were making. So I was experimenting, and the concept was like, I just sat there and I thought to myself, okay, I know the client, I know the product. Like I turned around in my room and I saw where I was, like some clothes that my wife has ordered, right? And I was like, my wife likes trying on clothes. I have an idea. Why don't I combine trying on clothes with Zumba, right? And this was just the idea. Now, this is probably not so helpful, but the takeaway there is you should all sit in your room and look left and right and see what you see. I'm joking. The thing here is like creative strategy has changed a lot because AI is killing it. And I did another webinar about this, but I think it's really worth saying, which is the default approach for creative is the same as the default approach for funnel, only it doesn't work for creative. So everyone's approach is, let me find the competitors. I'm going to copy the competitors. I'm going to clone their ads. I'm going to remake them and push them live, right? And it's kind of like, do this on repeat, do this on repeat, do this on repeat. The challenge is, one, AI has made it easy for anyone to copy anyone's ad, right? Like it's not hard for people to like, vibe code something with Claude Code to build a kind of pipeline that can spy on competitors' meta ad libraries, pull these creatives, and then like have these regenerated, stuff like this. Many people I've spoken to have built things like this. I've built something like this. It's like, it's cool. It's good to have. But if everyone is doing it, then guess what? You need to find something else. I like this line from the movie Incredibles, my favorite movie, where he says, if everyone is super, then no one will be, right? Or when everyone's super, no one will be. And the kind of thinking here is, if everyone has the same AI pipeline and everyone's spying on the same ad library, like let's say you have a running app. We know that runner are big. If you have a cycling app, we know you're looking at Strava, right? Like if you're a meditation app, we know who you're looking at. Guess what? So are all of your competitors. This is not the way that you're going to find the winning creative, right? Like you may get decent performing creative, but this will not be how you scale your account. And the reason for that is like threefold. one, these competitors probably have, or not probably, most definitely have higher spend than you, right? So if you imagine that we take the same funnel because we've just copied them, and we take the same creative because we've just copied them, then what levers do we have left, right? Like one of them is spend. How much spend am I going to put into the creative? Like, I don't know, but I don't think Meta are interested in the small ad spend, right, versus the big ad spend. And we don't know this for sure. It's not like I've seen their algorithm, but chances are we know with Andromeda that they're very much paying attention to creative to figure out whether or not they're the same. You're competing against the same audience as your competitors, not just yourself, right? So they have higher spend. You can't compete with the same creative. It's just, you just won't win. Like, and this is an important thing. You're not just competing against the other ads in your creative test, but you're competing against every other similar ad like your ad and the ones you're testing at that point in time, targeting the same customers. So you need to be much more innovative and really push things deeper. So this is like one reason why it's a bad idea. Second reason it's a bad idea is price, right? If you have a lower price than your competitor, or you have a lower lifetime value, or you're optimizing for like a really short payback period when your competitor can afford to lose money on year one and gain on the renewal, competing against them becomes very, very hard. They'll outbid you in the auction every single time, right? It's like there's just nothing you can do. You'll look at your metrics and they're not where they should be. You'll look at your competitors' creatives and their funnel, and you'll be like, it's the same. Like, I don't understand, right? It's because there are variables that you can't see, which impact how the creatives get seeded. So this is a really important point. And the third reason it's not a good idea is because, like, if you're copying, it means that you're not first, which means that you're jumping on an already fatiguing concept. Now, for anyone who's done like a whole load of TikTok creative production and TikTok testing, creatives on TikTok, they fatigue way faster than on Meta, right? Like sometimes good creatives can fatigue in like a few days, like, or creative shows some promise. After a few days, it's completely dead in the water, right? Meta, you have more time, but the kind of overall premise is the same, which is the sooner you find a trend or a trending concept, the more time you have with that creative, the more likely you are to succeed, right? So now to Igor's question specifically, what do I recommend for like finding trends? In fact, this question I've got a specific slide on, so I will come back to that specific question actually. But what I do want to talk about is the process that I follow to actually generate creative concepts and generate the types of creatives that I'm looking to create. Now, one thing I did want to mention is, like, you should spend a lot of time scrolling, right? Like, the number one way to really understand what trends are working is not to be looking at ad libraries, but to be looking at the organic feeds, right? And I give you an example. There's this trend in the UK. I'm sure it's in the US as well. I'm just here in the UK, so I'm only talking about what I see on my feed, which is like sitting down for my Netflix documentary on, right? And basically, like, people are taking like awkward moments of their life or things where they got like hard done by, and they're turning it into them like posing for a Netflix documentary. And it will be something ridiculous, right? Probably most of the things we can't even share right here. It will be like, I don't know, right? But something crazy. Now, the question is, how can we take this trend, which you find by scrolling, and apply that to your product, right? This is the type of thing I'm looking for. So it could be something like sitting down for my Netflix documentary on like why my gym membership like was the biggest scam, why gym memberships were the biggest scam of 2026, right? And then you're pushing a fitness app and you're like coming against the gym. This is going to stop some people. They're going to watch, and it's purely on an organic trend, right? So something like this. And really the way that I get this and many of the team is manual scrolling, right? And I know it's not what people want to hear, but like open up Instagram and TikTok and spend some time scrolling. Like it's like this. Of course, with TikTok, you discover trends. and TikTok, like their kind of ad platform and business managers, they provide a whole lot of different tools for you to find trends. You can also probably vibe code something up to like stay on top of these. But like genuinely, just start scrolling. It saves you some time. Even Claude isn't that fast. So this is now the approach that I like to take. The starting point for any creative, for me, and this varies, like different marketers, different people have different opinions. But for me, it's either one of these first two things. I'm either starting with the job to be done statement, or I'm starting with a trend, right? For example, if I'm scrolling on social and I see that post, I'm like, okay, I want to make an ad that will work based on this. That's all I care about. And then I figure out the rest. But most of the time, what you want to start with is by building out a whole load of like a job to be done user persona map, where you map out your different job to be done statements. Because when you take this job to be done and you take a trend, you then pair them together to get a script. And then out of this, you can come up with hook variants, which yes, Claude, Gemini, ChatGPT can help if you really must. Or like I'm sure you can come up with some hook variations. And this is kind of the kind of core elements of a creative. So if we talk now specifically about the job to be done statement, this is when I ... I want to ... so that I can, right? I'm sure many of you are familiar with job to be done. Like we don't have crazy amount of time, so I wanted to spend more time on this, but like this could be a whole other topic for a whole other webinar. So if you're watching right now, open up Claude and ask Claude to explain to you what is a job to be done statement. And he will do that really quickly. And you can read that as I continue. But essentially, we're looking for the so that I can, right? Which is the real life transformation and desired outcome that the person is looking for. So maybe Igor, if you're up for it, we can play like a small, like 1 minute game, you and me.
Okay, yeah, sure.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to ask you some questions and then you just answer them and then we'll come up with the job to be done statement. So like when someone is downloading a fitness app, why do they want to download a fitness app?
Okay, that's great question. So they downloading fitness app because okay, like do I need to answer like in the form like what they want
No,
to get?
just as like
Okay.
words as soon as it
I
comes
believe
out
like they have some problem in their life. Maybe like they're not socializing and they would want, maybe they're not happy with like some health conditions. Maybe they want to be more happy when they see themselves in the mirror, something like that. And this is like the middle level, I would say, of the need or problem. But if we go deeper, there would be some like happiness, socializing, fear of loneliness problems, this kind of stuff. So like if you go really deep into their problems, so they don't want just to lose weight, they want to have like a different life where they have like a lower weight, where they can do things that they could not before, or they have like a real pain, I mean like literally pain, and they want to fix it. And this can be also like a motivation to download the application. So they don't care about the app, they don't care about the course or whatever. They have some problems that they want to solve.
Exactly this, right? So like the example that you were kind of getting to would be, I don't know, something like when I look at myself in the mirror, I want to feel happy with what I see so that I can be confident when I go out to make friends. Something like this.
Perfect.
Right?
Yes.
This is like one job to be done statement. Another one might be like when I go outside to play with my grandchildren, I want to be strong enough to pick them up so that I can spend these older years of my life with my family, right?
Perfect.
Like we can do this all day long for loads of different ages, loads of different, cases. Now, the way we get there, I like to do the game that we just did. It's just Igor got it on the first go, which is to keep asking why. Like, I want to lose weight. Why do you want to lose weight? Because I don't like how I feel. Why don't you like how I feel? Because I don't think I look good. Why do you care about looking good? Because I want other people to think I look good. Why do you want other people to think you look good? Right. And you just keep asking why and why and why. And eventually you end up with the core deep reason. So this is how you can kind of come up with these job to be done statements. I call it cheating way, right? Because this is not the proper way, right? The proper way is actually that you take, qualitative quotes from user interviews, like app store reviews, like Reddit forums, right? These types of things. And you like social media posts, and you compile all of these and you analyze these and you create job to be done statements, right? And Claude can help with this. Like there's like Claude skills that can help with this. Really, really simple, saves you a whole lot of time. And then you end up with these statements.
Yeah, I would add a little bit here for jobs to be done. I actually I personally do not like any frameworks because they generalize things too much.
Yeah.
But jobs to be done is the thing that I use like for years, and it's not getting older. It's not getting worse. It's good. And also in the framework, when you start using it, you will prepare these kind of statements that you, Nathan, just did. But also there are like thing that you have to write down, like what are the objections, like why people are not buying, what are the barriers, and by writing down all this stuff for your audience, you will understand how you can prepare the creatives that are working with the objections and even the statements. I mean, like when you explained these statements, it was already a story. Like you can show this old person working with their grandchildren, and this is a story that you can incorporate in the creative. And when you will have these objections, you can add some additional like selling points into the funnel or into the creative, and CTA can be built on top of that. So jobs to be done is great. Please use it.
It's a really good framework. Yeah, and yeah, absolutely right with the objections, right? Like understanding why someone isn't buying, or why they aren't actually looking or not looking for, understanding why they aren't going after that transformation that they want in their life, even though we know that they want it. This is like super important. And it comes back down to like talking to your customers to figure this out. I don't want to spend too much time on this, but the reason I find this helpful is because you can build what I like to call informed empathy, which is like, we just played like, I guess, a sympathy game, right? Like we guessed a few things about some random old person and some random person who feels insecure. And the reason we can do that for fitness apps is because it's relatable. We either have been this person, or we know people like this, or we see this message so much. But some like products, if we take the golfing app, like the problem is way more specific and way more niche, and the job to be done is a little bit harder to find, right? But kind of speaking to people and understanding why they feel the way they do allows you to create better creatives. So like my number one piece of advice for any of the creative strategists watching, or like if you're a founder and you're the person making the ads yourself, it would be to really try and build this informed empathy skill, which is to resonate with how your customers feel about their specific pain point, because you understand the actual reasons they've given, right? So it's like, it's not your own empathy, but it's informed. Here are just a few things, but I'm gonna skip through this for the sake of time. Now, you want to be telling a story across like your full funnel, right? This is like the one big promise that you're pushing. And when we have these job to be done statements and we've produced a creative out of them, we've kind of took a story. The question then becomes, if you go through this funnel, is this story resonating continually, right? Are we holding that job to be done consistently across all of the screens? Because if we start to drop this or we start to lose this, this is when we kind of see some issues. But what I say with this is like 9 times out of 10, when you have a creative with strong on-platform metrics, so here are some benchmarks, right? Like a hook rate with like at least 30%, right? More like 35%, maybe 40%. a hold rate of like 6 to 10%, right? Link click-through rate above 1%, most definitely. Once you start to see these kind of metrics on a creative, like you should expect to see the downstream funnel performance, right? Like if you take two creatives, one that doesn't hit any of these three and one that does, 9 times out of 10, the one that hits these metrics is going to perform well, even down to paywall conversion, right? Like any metric across the board, you're probably going to expect to see a higher uplift. Of course, it depends on what you're optimizing for. But the reason I say this is because if you just focus on this creative, you can see improvements across your funnel. The only 4 times when this wouldn't be the case is if one, your creative is like clickbait, right? So you're selling some promise that doesn't exist, or you're trying to get engagement. In this case, you will see great likes, great comments, share rates, like all the metrics I spoke about, but it will just drop off. And probably your quiz completion rate will be pretty low. You may even have a low first screen conversion rate. If there's no clear job to be done, or there's multiple jobs to be done that you tried to bundle into one creative, it gets messy. This I wouldn't suggest. This can be a reason the performance lacks. Thirdly, and again, I mentioned this, but I hope no one's doing this. Like if you're optimizing your meta campaigns for a very high top of funnel event, like first screen conversion or landing page view, I don't know if anyone still does this in 2026, but like, don't do this because this is like schoolboy
Never
you know,
do that.
never. And the final one is like the incoherent story, right? Which is just you're pushing something really strong in the creative, but it just is not there. Now, this is the point I do want to touch on. Maybe we won't get to go through all of the rest, but this one, to Eagle's point, spy on concept and trends, not ads, right? So there are tools out there like Foreplay, I think Magic Brief, like there are some others where you can essentially like an ad scan, where you can essentially spy on like your competitors' ads, and this is great for finding ads and kind of looking at top best-in-class apps. But I'm not interested in their ads, to be honest. I'm interested with the concepts and the trends. So by a trend, I mean something that is performing across organic social media that everyone is just organically creating content for, like the Netflix documentary idea I spoke about, but just things where it's like, oh, everyone seems to be doing this at the moment. Like I'm seeing loads of content on X or Y. This is a trend. A concept is more like a specific creative format type, ad type, that you're seeing on a creative. The example I could give is like POV, right? This is a concept. Or another one might be like sticky note. This is a concept. Or like you may have seen these creatives where like someone opens the fridge and then they like the phone is in the fridge, or like something's in the fridge filming them, right? Like this I would consider a concept. And you want to find as many of these concepts as possible. So the way you can do this is you can spy on many different ad accounts and aggregate the creatives and then look to sort them and go through them to see which concepts are coming up the most, to see like what's working, what specific concepts haven't you tried that you should be trying. Because in order to really succeed with like Andromeda and everything that's happening right now, you need a diversity in concepts. So this means you want to be having, despite the fact I said don't start with them, winning talking head UGCs. You want some winning POV creatives. You want some winning AI static image ads. You want some like chunk of text creatives. You want as many different concepts, like wrappers as possible. And many times these wrappers can have the exact same job to be done, the exact same story and message, right? But it's about first finding that message that you can push out. And then you can get fun with the hooks and the trends, right? So this is what I wanted to say. How are we doing for time, Igor?
I mean, like my position, until we give a really nice content, we don't care about time. So let's continue. How do you look for these trends? I mean, thank you for this idea about Netflix. I actually, when scrolled a few days ago through Instagram, I saw a couple of these videos.
Okay.
I didn't know that this is a trend. But now I realize it was catchy because like it starts with the Netflix sound. the person is sitting in front of
Yeah.
the camera. So I know the setup and it's cool. It really caught my attention. So like, guys, if you listen for it, try this approach. I believe it will be good for your ads. So like, your recommendation is just simply you just scroll through Instagram and you look for the ideas. I mean, this is like the best way, I think. Yeah.
It is the best. The reason why, and the reason I think is because when you're in the moment, right, and you're scrolling personally, if something stops you, it's in context, right? So it's like, oh, this thing actually stopped me, right? Whereas if I'm just scrolling on an ad library or one of these boards or these ad spy tools, I'm like, okay, there's tons of stuff here. Like, okay, like that's not how I stop. I could play it and watch and then play the next one, but this is not how you think as a user. Like, the context of our users is they're scrolling and then they see our ad. So if we can replicate that with our creative research process, it helps, right? And like, one thing you can do, which I would suggest, this is a top secret tip, is like create a new account, right, and engage with loads of the content in your specific niche, right? So if you are, for example, like a golfing app, engage with everything golfing on this specific account, nothing else. And then also I suggest that every time you see like an app install ad or like a mobile app ad, like download the app, right? Like download the app, and then Meta will start like hitting you with more of these. But having this kind of fresh account can really help to kind of be in that zone of what your target customer will be. And then your own account you can use just for finding general trends. Like, this is how I've done it. You can, and there are ways that you can like be pulling. There are different companies and partners where you can kind of pull these different trends and performing creatives via like the API, and then aggregate these and look through these. This is something that could be done if you wanted to do this. I don't think it's necessary, to be completely honest with you. But if you like building things, this is what you can build.
Yeah, and here, by the way, I could recommend scrapecreators.com. They have an API to get like trending videos and to export all the Facebook ads, TikTok ads, trending reels, TikToks, all this information, so you can get it through API. But yeah, like real engagement with the content on one dedicated account. I believe it's like the best way. That's why like all the ads that I have in Instagram, they are for the apps or for web top funnels, like 90%.
Yeah, that makes sense. Cool. So I want to quickly, I don't know why it says 8. There's not 8. There's like 4 or 3. So I that number's wrong. But I want to quickly blast some hot takes. Maybe some of these aren't controversial. Maybe some of them are, but these are points I just want to hit home to make sure that everyone watching keeps in mind for creative testing. Number 1, hypotheses for messaging, rationale for concepts. And what I mean by this is like having a structured hypothesis when it comes to a job to be done statement or a messaging test or specific language and what you think it will evoke in a user makes a lot of sense. For example, it could be something like, we think that our audience actually wants to lose weight whilst having fun, not just lose weight, right? And something like this. This is a hypothesis. Makes a lot of sense to actually be testing. But what I've done before, and we don't do anymore, and some people still do, and I just don't agree with it, is trying to come up with hypotheses for a trend and a concept. Like, reality, you were scrolling on TikTok, you saw the Netflix thing, you think this is a good idea, right? That's what happened, right? That's the rationale. Like, why do you want to test this? So if the client says to us, like, guys, why do you want to test this? Like, well, I was scrolling on on TikTok for 2 hours and I saw like 15 of these. So like, I feel like we should test this. You could structure this into we think that we should test this creative concept because it's a trend, but then you end up with like hundreds of concept tests with all the same hypothesis. So spend time focusing on like your hypotheses for messaging and angles and job to be done statements and user psychology, and just have some sort of rationale for the concept. So this is hot take 1. Hot take number 2, volume doesn't technically matter. Right. And this is the one where it's a good job I'm on a screen, because everyone would throw their stones at me. But like retrospectively, most ads are losers, right? Which means that most of your volume is wasted, right? Like I'm going somewhere, but like if you test 1,000 ads and you find 5 winners, like this means that you wasted 995 ads. This is not something to be proud of, right? Like people say like, oh, volume. Now, of course, the caveat is the more shots you take on target, the more likely you are to score. So like you need to find the 5 winners, which can take 1,000 ads. But the goal should be, how can we find as many winning ads as possible with fewer tests? Not how can we test as many ads as possible. Like it's just the wrong mindset. And the reason I have a great example of this is we had a client, and this client had 2 creative agents, actually more than 2, like 3 or 4 creative agencies. And one of the creative agencies was doing crazy volume, like 2 to 3 times us and any other agency, right? But they had the fewer winners. And it's like they're doing a lot of things, but it's not working. Right? You're much better off spending your time and your resource focusing on what messaging should we be testing with what concept, and coming up with quality creatives that you're confident in, as opposed to just pumping volume. Now, I've done like a few articles on this, but it's very, very hard to maintain win rate and consistency as you pump up volume, like with a single like set of people working on the creative. Like if you have one creative strategist and you try to get this person to double the volume, like it will drop. Like it won't be as consistent. You're better off getting another creative strategist if you really need more volume than you are forcing more out of a person. But my question is, and what we consider is like, just be careful when you focus on volume, because it actually doesn't matter, right? It's an input and a tool. It's not the outcome. Hot take number 3, and Igor kind of touched on this when you were speaking about audiences at the very beginning, so similar, but campaign structure is irrelevant, right? Like 100% irrelevant. And again, these are hot takes. I'm purposefully being provocative, right? I don't really think it's irrelevant, but it's largely irrelevant. Campaign structures help you to find winners more efficiently. And what I mean by that is, when you're testing 100 creatives, you don't want to waste spend on a losing creative, right? You want to structure your tests in a way where you can keep, similar themes and concepts together, similar angles together, similar hook variations together, and you can separate these out and test in a way that makes sense so that you don't waste spend and you can learn efficiently. But ultimately, the winners will rise to the top regardless, right? Like, and I challenged, it was some of the team, I asked them a question. I said, do you think if we were to go back in time to when we first started working with a particular client, knowing all of the winning creatives from today, and we were to chuck them in a completely random, horrible structure, what do we think would happen to performance? Like, performance would be good. Like, whether it's 50 creatives in an ad set, 1 creative per ad set, 3 to 5 creatives per ad set, 30, like, guys, the winners will rise to the top. It doesn't really matter. There are instances where we have seen that Meta just doesn't do what you want it to do. Like it floods spend into a creative that has great on-platform metrics, but terrible cost per result. And it just keeps doing this, where you want to break out structures, or you specifically want to test in a systematic way. But like, we have ad accounts right now with like 30 plus ads per ad set that are performing. And we have another ad account where there's less than 3 ads per ad set and it's performing there. It's like, it varies.
Okay, good take, and I completely agree with you. And we also had a question related to that from Eric. Hi, Eric, if you're still there. How do you test 100 creators with Meta keeps optimizing on the ones that are winning early? Yeah, great. Thanks, guys. So, yeah, I understand that setup can be completely different. I know UA managers who do like CBO optimization, who do like ad set optimization, who add 10 creatives maximum. I see people who like just copy the campaigns and add new creatives to existing campaigns. I saw cases when people just add new creatives to existing campaigns. So there are different ways how to do that. And I believe like once you scale and you get your skill, there is your own style of fashion, how to launch campaigns. What would be your recommendations on how to start campaigns with like a medium-sized budget? Like what do you usually do for your clients, I would say?
Yeah, sure. So like personally, if I have 100 creatives today, right? Like I have 100 creatives today that I want to test, then, and I have to test them at the same time, then what I would do is I would first break them by like videos and statics. Maybe we have 60 videos, 40 statics. These are two different groups. Then I'd look into these videos and I'd be like, okay, like, are they all UGC? Like, what are the concepts here? Maybe 30 of them are AI videos and 30 of them are UGC videos. Now we have another clear separation. And I keep separating out like angle, like concept I already mentioned, like if there's a clear job to be done or target audience, it could be the creator age, something like this. And then it could be that we're grouping them based on like concept to hook variant. So maybe you have one ad, like a net new concept, and you have 4 variants of this. This could be one. And I would separate them out this way. So I would go more granular personally, just because of this issue, right? Like I prefer to do this because it makes testing easier. Like if I can have fewer than 7 ads in an ad set when testing, it makes my life easier. If I decided that I wanted to have 50 ads in an ad set and just 2 ad sets, then I would set up automated rules to pause these, to like pause the winners, so that the other creatives get kind of like forced spend. The downside of this is like now you've just paused your winner, which is actually what you want. Like the goal of creative testing is to find winning ones, not just to test. So I would much rather have fewer ads, so I have to pause less. Like, of course, like it's not a success if I have 100 creatives and I've only tested 1 out of 100. But the last thing I want to do is stop spending on that one to spend on the others. I'd rather either leave it spending or graduate this somewhere else so that it can continue to spend.
Interesting counterintuitive approach where you stop spending on the winners, because like usually you see the winner and you disable like everything else and you continue spending on it. But like campaigns for testing creatives are different, like they have different goals. So yeah, like it makes sense. Good things.
It's counterintuitive. Like I said, I wouldn't recommend this. It's like if I had to, then I would do this. I would much rather like move this somewhere else, keep spending on it, or preferred in the first place, separate them out. So I have to do less pausing, right? Like if I only have 5 ads in an ad set, 1 will get most of the spend, 1 or 2 might get like some spend, 3 will probably get no spend. That's fine. In that case, those 3 probably aren't going to pick up. Which is, it could be another hot take. We could call it hot take 3.5, which is you're more likely to find false positives than you are false negatives. And by that I mean like, well, it literally ties into the next question, the next hot take. But like, you're more likely to find a creative that you thought was a winner that stops performing than you are a creative that didn't get spend because Meta put spend elsewhere. And then when you finally move it to its own ad set and give it spend, it becomes a winner. Like 1 in a million. 1 in a million. Meta's algorithm's very good at prioritizing those winning creatives. Which leads us to hot take number 4, which is creative never really exits testing. Right? Like this is just a construct that we have as advertisers to understand whether or not a creative is performing at a given spend at cost per result. By this, I mean, if you imagine an ad that has 0 spend and an ad that has 150,000 spend, at any point in this journey, if it stops performing, we're going to kill it, right? So really, we always test, as in, I say we, as in we collectively, the industry, test for, I'm looking for a creative to hit a, $15 CPT with, at least X hundred to spend. This is how I want to test. But really, we're looking for, I want a creative that I can put $100,000 in and still have a $15 CPT. If that's the experiment, then it's going to run for a really long time. And even the winners, they're still in testing, right? Because there are creatives that fatigue at various different points. It's just the curve. So we're trying to understand any given creative, how its curve plateaus, like how shallow it is. Maybe it would have been nice if I had a graphic for that, to be fair. But yeah, these are my 4.5 hot takes, which leads into any other questions.
Well, we had one question about like how to test on Meta. We answered that, and yeah. So, like the question for me, how do you generate creatives now? Like, what tools do you use to analyze, to generate, to create? What's your pipeline setup? Some like name dropping all the LLMs or whatever tools you are using.
Yeah, for sure. So I think when it comes to like, first of all, like script generation, things like this, like no one is, well, I'm going to caveat this. I personally like to write scripts from scratch. And by this, I mean like sit down, look at a job to be done statement, imagine I'm a user and just start typing, right? I find that this is how you can get, like, people call it taste. Like this is how you can get taste in a creative. Like if you ask Claude, which is the alternative option, to just like generate, add script for your UGC creator, it's going to sound Claudey, and then you're going to edit it after. And it was like, that's what you get. Even if you give Claude, all of your references and tell it to write something like you, it's going to be Claudey. I much prefer, and I know quite a few creative strategists who do, is kind of getting some ideas from Claude, writing the core script yourself, and then maybe tweaking back and forth with Claude for some variations. But like the initial like add script process and ideation is pretty much just this, right? If you're using ChatGPT, go for it. Grok is quite nice in terms of like the way it talks, the way Grok speaks, like a social media agent would. But any of this stuff, when it comes to image generation, like image 2, GPT image 2 is like kind of where everything is at the moment, and this is kind of what we're using. Just literally in ChatGPT, create me this image. You can paste in some references and you can tweak back and forth. This is solid. Nano Banana, like with Gemini, has been a good one for a while and it's still strong. Like I use both of these and it very much varies. If you're looking for like one platform that you can use specifically, like there are tons out there. Like Higgsfield is quite a good one to be looking into, where you can also access some of the other video models, right? Like Dance 2 is like without a doubt the best model for video generation and UGC video generation, in my opinion. Like up to 15 seconds is pretty solid. Like Kling 3.0 is it, or even maybe 3.1 has come out now. Maybe not. Is good, but like much prefer Dance 2.0. We've actually been building our own internal like tool, like our own agent that we interact with and chat to build out these creatives. So the one that you saw, the AI creative that I shared earlier, the Zumba one, this was built on this tool, which is called Swoopy. We're using it internally only at the moment, but like at some point, maybe it'll be available for people to try and get their hands on. But these are the kind of things. Like there are still great use in using like tools like Arcads, like if you want to use the UGC. But like in my opinion, like you're paying a fairly steep premium for something that you can get elsewhere. So I don't think it's that much of a time save in many cases. And there are also very like different like drag and drop AI ad creative builders. One of the ones that I use was called I don't use it anymore, but like maybe earlier last year was Pletor, Pletor, which is a really cool drag and drop. Like you can make your image and then feed this in to change the video, stuff like this. I just find it a bit clunky. Like I prefer not to do that process, and I prefer to just like go directly to the models and like, or be in Higgs field and like make my image, and then take my image and use this to create a video.
Okay, good, thanks. And while we are here, I will add some information about Web2Wave. So like with Web2Wave, we are the platform where you can generate and create the funnels. We also help our clients to create them. And we have MCP, like as we started to talk about the tools. And with MCP, you can generate the funnels, you can analyze all the experiments, you can create new experiments, do the test, create prices, send emails, generate email sequences, and do everything like in automated way. And other thing that we just released, like we have quiz insights. What Nathan told in the in this video about that you have to create jobs to be done statements. We actually do it already. So you just go to every quiz, you click insights, and we can generate AI insights based on the user's answers. So we analyze the answers that user gave. Then we take the answers that buyers gave, we compare them, and we identify like who, what are the answers of those people who like really converted in your funnel. And by that, we recommend jobs to be done statements, and we even create scenarios for your ads. They are not like final, but still we have cases when you just take these scenarios for static images and for video images, and you put it into like ChatGPT or to Seedance, and you generate the stuff. So like everything that Nathan mentioned in like in an early stage is available on Web2Wave. So okay, little ad interaction. And yeah, we don't have any other questions in the chat, but I believe that was a really good video, insightful. Thank you, Nathan. And yeah, thank you guys for coming. And yeah, good luck with your ads.
Good luck, everyone.
Thank you. Yes,
Thank you.
thanks. Bye.